Introducing the Lowe's List for Innovation. While our aisles are filled with innovative products, we've selected our favorites just for you. Like the exclusive Whirlpool washer with industry-first 2-in-1 removable agitator. We love this washer because you can customize any load. And with other smart features to streamline your laundry routine, this product is a must-have for families. Shop the full Lowe's list of top picks at Lowe's.com. Lowe's, home to any budget, home to any possibility. U.S. only.
I was asked to talk about, really before Shabbos, I was asked to talk about getting haircuts during Sefira. Didn't have a chance to talk about it before Shabbos because we didn't have a 10-minute halacha, so we'll talk about it now. So the reason someone asked me about it was they wanted to know if there's anything to the minhag of shaving Erev Shabbos during Sefira. Are you allowed to do that? Or is that an invalid minhag? What the halacha really is. So if you look in the Torah in Orach Chaim Siman Tav Tzadi Gimel, the Torah writes Yesh Mekamos Shenagu Shelo L'Staper, that there are places where the minhag is not to get a haircut during Sefira, and that's as strongly as he words it. What is the definition of lehistaper, of getting a haircut? So in Maseches Smachos, the Brisa in Smachos is very clear that Netilas Seir, it says L'tisporas Ketzad. What does it mean when an Avel can have tisporas? What does that mean? So he says Asr bin Netilas Seir Echad Rosho, Vechad Svamo, Vechad Zikno, Vechad Kol Seir Shabo. It's the hair on his head, it's his mustache, it's his beard, it's any of that hair. That's all considered tisporas. So not to distinguish between getting a haircut and shaving a beard, it's all l'chora included in tisporas. Now the way the Rambam formulates the din, he makes it sound like the tisporas of tiglachas, of shaving a beard, is not really as much tisporas as getting a haircut. But even the Rambam, even though he seems to say that it's only like a tafel, it's only like similar to tisparis, but even the Rambam assumes it's asa, that if you're practicing avelus, and part of the avelus is an isser tisparis, it's also an isser tiglachas, it's also an isser to shave, right? The Rambam writes in Hilchos Avel Perikei, Halacha Beis, he says, Ukeshem sha'asu legalech sarosho, kach asu legalech sar zikna v'kol ser sheyeshbo. Just like you're not allowed to shave the hair on your head, you're also not allowed to shave the hair on your beard or any other hair either. So the Rambam he says it as a kashem, but he does say that it's asir. So it doesn't seem that there's much room to be makel in terms of beard any more than there is to be makel in terms of the hair on our head. That just like we don't get a haircut, we shouldn't shave during Sefira. The Torah says that's the minhag. Minhag is shelo l'staper. Rav Soloveitchik though had the following idea, and this is why many of the Talmidim of Rav Soloveitchik do shave during Sefira. He had the following sort of Soloveitchik in general like to categorize halachas. They didn't like the idea that we're going to come up with a minhag and just make up our own rules for a minhag. That the rules just come out of nowhere. That just from outer space we decide, okay, tisporas. So no, if we're going to say that something is avelus, it has to fit one of the known categories of avelus that we already have in din. If we're going to have a minhag of avelus, the minhag has to match something that we know of in halacha. So he says that by 3 weeks also. By 3 weeks it's easier to explain. Because by 3 weeks you have it very clearly. He says, on the day of Tisha B'Av, which halachos of avelus do we observe? We observe the avelus of Shiva, as if a person is sitting Shiva. Now there are minor differences. He has a long essay where he describes a public avelus versus a private avelus, a communal avelus versus a individual avelus, where it's natural to lead to different slight variances in the halacha, but fundamentally, basically, it's about an avelus of Shiva. And avelus during the 9 days, or Shua Shechalbo, depending on the minhag, is going to be the avelus of Shloshim Yom. And the avelus of the 3 weeks is avelus of Yud Beis Chodesh. And Rav Soloveitchik argued the avelus of all of Sefira, for however long you observe it, which is a whole other discussion of how long to observe it and exactly when to observe it. There are like 6 different minhagim, Rav Moshe writes in the Tshuva of Sefira. But whenever it is that you observe the laws of Sefira, it should mimic the halachos of Yud Beis Chodesh. So Rav Shechter writes in Nefesh Harav, page Kuf Tzadi Aleph, in Nefesh Harav, that once you accept that Havana, that the laws of Sefira are supposed to mimic the laws of Yud Beis Chodesh, so then it's going to be mutter to shave during Sefira. Why? Not for anybody, but for people who shave every day. Because what's the halacha in Yud Beis Chodesh? You're not allowed to get haircuts during Yud Beis Chodesh until until someone tells you look disgusting, you need to get a haircut. So there's machlokes poskim. Does someone have to actually tell you look disgusting, or can you just get to the point where if people weren't so polite, maybe they would tell you, or if you hung around with friends who weren't as polite, they would tell you that you look disgusting, but they didn't actually tell you. That's one machlokas. Another machlokas, when you get to that point of shir ga'ara, you get to that point where someone would tell you that you look disgusting, do you then shave and then wait till you get back to that point again? Or do you just assume that, no, once I get to that point once, I can shave and then I'm good to go for the rest of the velus, for the rest of the Yud Beis Chodesh? But we generally assume, I think like Rabbi Akiva Eiger says, that you can continue to shave. Once you get to the shir ga'ara, you shave once and then you can continue to shave every day. So when everyone walks around with a beard, or if you're a person who normally has a beard, especially if it's a long beard, so when do you get to the shir ga'ara? Probably never. You go through the whole sefira, and you're not going to get to a shir ga'ara if you don't trim your beard, because it doesn't look all that different, right? If you have a long beard, that to not shave it. But if you're a person who normally shaves, and like about half the guys in this yeshiva are, if you're a person who normally shaves, and you look very neat because you're always clean shaven, and then you don't shave for a little while, so it's a couple of days till you get to the point where you don't look nice. So once you get to that point, that's shir ga'ara. Then you, certainly for a minhag, you can be making like those shitos that probably you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you that you look disgusting, and you can shave at that point and then continue to shave. And by the time Chol HaMoed is over, you're at that point already anyway. By the time Yantif is over, you're already at that point anyhow. So therefore, the Talmidim of Rav Soloveitchik, or many of the Talmidim of Rav Soloveitchik, do shave during Sefira. Rav Soloveitchik is quoted to have said, although I don't think Rav Shechter quotes this in Nefesh HaRav, I've heard that Rav Soloveitchik is quoted to have said that if you are allowed to shave during Sefira, then a Ben Torah must shave during Sefira. Meaning, if you hold that you're allowed to, then you must, because a Ben Torah should always look like a mensch, should always look put together, and has an achrayus to carry himself in such a way, and therefore, if you hold that it's permissible, then you hold that you must do it. It's not optional. Okay, that's the shita of Rav Soloveitchik. Rav Aaron Lichtenstein has a different shita than his father-in-law. Rav Aaron Lichtenstein had a raya from Magen Avram. Magen Avram says in Siman Tav Kuf Nun Aleph Siv Gimel Legabe Shabbos Chazon. In regards to Shabbos Chazon, the Magen Avram writes that Lekavod Shabbos it's mutter lechabes on Thursday. Where is it? And he goes on to say, he says, "V'kasav bagos hashrid the tispores aser afilu lekavod Shabbos." You're not allowed to get a haircut even lekavod Shabbos on Shabbos Chazon. V'nirli atam dibelav hachi ein regilin lesaper bekol shavua. Why? Because you don't get a haircut every other Erev Shabbos. You don't trim your beard every other Erev Shabbos. You trim your beard every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. So you don't have to make one of those weeks, Shabbos Chazon, that you're going to trim your beard. So says Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, what do you see from that Magen Avram? That even during the 9 days, even Erev Shabbos Chazon, Magen Avram says if you are someone, the implication is if you are someone who typically shaves every single week and makes sure that you go into Shabbos clean shaven, then you would be allowed to do it even on Erev Shabbos Chazon. Kal v'chomer during 3 weeks, Kal v'chomer during Sefira. Right, where it has only a status of Avelus Yud Beis Chodesh or whatever, a lesser level of Avelus than you would have during the 9 days. That's Rav Aaron Lichtenstein's raya. He has a piece, it's in English on the internet, you can find on the Gush website. They have, Rav Aaron has a whole sikha on shaving during Sefira. There is a sefer that was published a couple of years ago called Va'alahu Lo Yibol, which is a sefer of a rabbi who went around with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and basically walked with him on his way wherever Rav Shlomo Zalman was going and shepherded him the whole time. He just kept on bothering him with questions and asking him things, and he wrote down every single word of the conversation that he had with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and he published it. Now he has a sefer called V'alo Yibol of random comments that were made by Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach to his questions, and he's very honest about how he reports them. Like one of the questions he asked Rav Shlomo Zalman responded, he writes, Va'ana li harav, that Rav Shlomo Zalman responded to me, and he said to me, how long have you been learning in yeshiva for? As if to say, like, why don't you know the answer to that? Like, he writes it down. Kamazman, not to lamad b'yeshiva. He's very honest about every single word that Rav Shlomo Zalman said to him in terms of how he reports Sefer. It's one of the unique svarim that in the Hakdama to the Sefer, there's a haskama, the haskama from one of Rav Shlomo Zalman's children begging him not to publish the Sefer. Now, my father didn't know you were writing this stuff down, he didn't know that you were going to publish this, so he says, okay, objection noted, and here's the Sefer. So in this Sefer, he writes that he asked Rav Shlomo Zalman about this sheet of the Magen Avram. right, about this this diuk from the Magen Avram that Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, he doesn't quote Rav Aaron Lichtenstein by name, he says Rosh Yeshiva Echad. A certain Rosh Yeshiva had such a diuk, so what do you hold of this diuk? So Rav Shlomo Zalman said, L'maisa, you shouldn't be Megaleach during the days of Sfiras HaOmer. You shouldn't shave during Sfiras HaOmer. And if it was mutter, one of the Nosei Kelim on the Shulchan Aruch would have said so beferish, you shouldn't have to pull a Magen Avram with the diuk from the middle of Hilchas Shabbos Chazon. And none of the Nosei Kelim on the Shulchan Aruch were mayor this point, and therefore he thinks that the Svara is Svara Omeres Shayit Sarach Lios Mutter L'Skaleach L'Kavod Shabbos. And he says, I understand the Svara is that it should be mutter, but the minig is not to, and therefore he thinks that you shouldn't do it. Now he says, however, I'm aware of the rabbi who's Mekel, and he says, Misha Mekel Iskalech Yesh Lo Al Ma Lismoch. Rav Shlomo Zalman told him, whoever is Mekel certainly has what to rely on. Mikivin Shazed Davar Chadash B'mei Hashanim Ha'achrona Shemarbim L'Skalech, because the whole idea that people shave frequently is only something that's happened over the last century. It's a relatively new phenomenon. So he says, therefore, if you're going to be Mekel, you have what to be Somichan, but I wouldn't recommend it. Shlomo Zalman says he wouldn't recommend it, and that's Rav Moshe writes in the Tshuva also that it's appropriate not to shave during Sefira. Rav Moshe was asked, what about shaving during Sefira for the sake of business, because you have a job? So Rav Moshe in Orach Chaim Chelik Dalet Siman Kuf Beis says that during the 3 weeks and during Sefira, where it's going to be a hefsid mamon if you don't shave, it's mutter ki lo nagu b'makom hefsid. The whole thing is only a minhag. The minhag was only accepted when it's not going to be a makom hefsid. When it's going to be a makom hefsid, we never accepted the minhag. However, Rav Moshe writes, and a lot of people don't realize this, b'shvur shechal bo Tisha B'Av, he says it's also min hadin. It's not just a minhag in Shavuot Shechal B'Tisha B'Av, and therefore even for work, Rav Moshe holds you're not allowed to shave on the Shavuot Shechal B'Tisha B'Av. I don't know anyone who says you would be allowed to shave on the Shavuot Shechal B'Tisha B'Av even for work. Even Rav Soloveitchik also, according to Rav Soloveitchik, it's shloshim. You don't shave for work during shloshim. So that's it's a major halacha that a lot of people perhaps are unaware of. The Ramah writes that Bali Bris are allowed to shave on the day of a bris milah in honor of the bris milah. The Bali Bris being the Aviyah Ben, the Moel, the Sandik. Also, the Ramah writes, this year is a unique heter. I was very nervous. I'm traveling to Eretz Yisrael on Motzai Shabbos, which is Lag BaOmer. And I was thinking for a second, wait, if I'm traveling on Lag BaOmer, I'm not going to have a chance to get a haircut, to shave beforehand. No, but the Ramah writes that when Lag BaOmer falls on a Sunday, it would be a terrible bizayin to Shabbos if a person takes a haircut on Sunday and didn't take a haircut right before Shabbos. They can take a haircut after Shabbos and not right before Shabbos. And therefore, when Lag BaOmer falls on Sunday, Ramah says you're allowed to take a haircut on the Friday before Lag BaOmer. You do not have to wait till Sunday, and probably you should not wait till Sunday, because you want to show proper kavod for Shabbos. What about if you're invited to a wedding during a day when you hold the Sefira and the people who are making the wedding don't hold the Sefira? So it's a major discussion of Moshe's Tshuva or Chaim Chel Beisim and Sadihei that it depends if you would otherwise go. Would you be so embarrassed that you wouldn't go to the wedding if you don't shave? So he says if you would be so embarrassed that you wouldn't go to the wedding, don't not go to the wedding. Then shave and go to the wedding, because going to the wedding with Samech Chas Makal is a mitzvah, and you shouldn't hold back that mitzvah because of this minhag of Sefira. Certainly you're allowed to go to a wedding, right? And regardless, you're allowed to go to the wedding. The question is, are you allowed to shave for the wedding? And it seems to Ramosh seems to be against Chassam Sofer, whatever. There may be a difference between a wedding and a bris. Not going to get into it. A lot of women want to know, what about getting shaitels cut during Sefira? So getting shaitels cut during Sefira is a totally different issue. It has nothing to do with hair cutting. Getting a shaitel cut, we always assume, has a din of getting a garment tailored. It's like going to the tailor and getting a piece of clothing tailored. So that you're allowed to do during Sefira, and L'chara, therefore you're allowed to get a shaitel cut during Sefira, so you can go tell your future wives that they can get their shaitels cut during Sefira. Yeah.
At Lowe's, we're your go-to for great gardening values every day. That's why we've lowered our price on select bagged mulch, now starting at just $2.88 a bag. Mulch helps prevent weeds and retains moisture, and when you put it down around trees, shrubs, and flower beds, you'll see how beautiful it makes your outdoor space. Just in time to welcome back family and friends. Shop online and pick up in store. Lowe's, home to the best part of summer. Selection and product availability vary by location. While supplies last, U.S. only. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.